4 y 5. Good morning, everyone. My name is Manuela Ramirez, Financing and IRO in Grupo Energía Bogotá. Welcome to our second quarter results call. This conference is being recorded. The presentation that we'll see today was sent yesterday and is uploaded in our investor section of our webpage. In the right corner of your screen, you can ask questions at any time in the Q&A section. Please state your full name and the company that you represent so we can easily identify you. Now, let me introduce you to Jorge Tavares, who will lead the call today. Good morning, Jorge.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Manuela. Thank you for your interest, and I'm gonna go as typically through the presentation, and then we'll open it for Q&A at the end. So we welcome any inquiries that you may have. Following page, please. Next. So the snapshot of our results as headlined, I will say that our operating results were quite positive during the first half of the year, in part because of the structure of our industry, as the tariff indexation allows us to capture, in some cases, the inflation, and the fact that we publish our results in Colombian pesos also allow us to benefit from exchange rate depreciation of the Colombian currency or cross currencies depreciation of the Colombian peso against the Peruvian sol, for example. But also the results show the execution of the inorganic growth strategy that is delivering positive results for us. On the left, we have the EBITDA for the quarter increases by 58. All these figures are in billion Colombian pesos, and the exchange rate is about 4,300 pesos on that order of magnitude. So for you to keep that in mind. When we look at the composition of the business, gas continues having the most significant contribution, both in terms of it as a combination of gas distribution and gas transportation. And very importantly, I think I highlight the increase in all businesses EBITDA. So the positive results are a consequence of contribution from all businesses. In the quarter, Colombia represents 60% and the region 40%. This, in terms of EBITDA, this is a quarter in which we don't receive dividends from our non-controlled subsidiaries. So that is the reason why this composition, and also as you will see later, the composition is not as typical as the first quarter or the same as the end of the year. When we look at the table on the bottom, revenue increased by 23%. The operating income was flat, and then the control net income increases by 0.8%. I highlight also that we are investing very actively in our portfolio, both organically and inorganically. From this $227 million, $116 million were the amount that we paid for the Elec Norte acquisition, and the rest of it is the organic capex, mostly in the Colombian transmission operation and in Calida, as we continue expanding the network and connecting more clients in gas distribution in Peru. In the middle, a very healthy net debt to EBITDA, 2.9 times, and our return figures are slightly below the figures of the last quarter, but mostly as a positive, I think, because the increase in the asset base that will deliver results and returns on a continuous basis as we move forward. A very active, I would say, macroeconomic environment with depreciation of the Colombian peso of 6% in the quarter. And we continue seeing, as most of us in the finance world see, very, very high headline numbers, both in PPI and IPC. Next. So a summary of what we have already mentioned to the market is our acquisition in Brazil, which is the total enterprise value is $1.4 billion. A very transformative acquisition for us, and one that is fully aligned with the strategy that we outlined back in 2020. The transmission lines in Colombia, also with Elec Norte, we raised some money out of placing bonds in the local market, which, as markets continue to evolve after our issuance, proved to be a good timing to go to market. The District of Bogota found a different funding mechanism to actually agree with the central government to construct and pay for a new metro line in Bogota. And with that, they terminated the process, so we are no longer executing, and the district has no longer in its plans to sell the percentage stake that they were considering selling. When we look at the subsidiaries, Calida just completed a 5-year tariff review. The outcome was positive. The process, despite of all the political turmoil and uncertainties in Peru, the technical body of Synermin managed a fairly technical process, and according to the typical guidelines that they have published, the tariff increased by 9.7% on average, and we will start charging that back in since May of 2021. And we are being very efficient, and a lot of people also are connecting new homes to our system, and we now plan almost to double the expected number of connections by year end, reaching to 210,000 connections, which is a good source of further revenue for the future. And in the near term, it just provides for a high capex, but also some increases in the expenses, some of them which are passed through. The Colectora project, which is a cornerstone project in Colombia to connect the non-conventional projects, we have reached 90% of the agreement with the local communities, which is an outstanding achievement, 201 agreements and counting. And with the remaining communities, we are engaged in a positive dialogue, and the ones that we have not been able to is because of internal issues in the communities themselves. Is not something related to our interaction with them, which gives us a good hope to actually finalize all the agreements with the communities to start confirm the process with the Agencia Nacional de Licencias Ambientales, with ANLA. And we managed to get to demonstrate some delays, the causes of some delays, and we got more time from the Ministry of Energy for both Colectora and Refuerzo Suroccidental, which are two key projects for us. And on TGI, a lot of good news. We highlight here that the bidirectionality of the gas transportation system in Colombia has now been tested, which means that we can, using TGI, get gas from the north coast regas facility all the way to the center of the country. Next. In terms of performance, you see here the operating income flat. Some of the cost and administrative expenses have their corresponding increase also on the revenue side, which is an important element because some of the growth figures for the expenses are relatively high. But I'll say that they are healthy, and we continue managing and have under control the cost base of the company. A 23% increase in revenues is something remarkable, really, given the maturity of our businesses. And I highlight the El Norte contribution of almost 40,000 million Colombian pesos. The FX effect, which reflects the currency diversification of the company, and the contribution from the base operation of 200, which is actually compounded, as I mentioned, by contributions from all segment lines. As I mentioned, the way to look at this relatively high variations on expenses on the top right is better understood if we look at the margins, because the macro environment reflects some of the increase in the expenses, and also because we are organically connecting more people, and that also implies some additional expenditures. On the operating cost, perhaps, on the administrative expenses, on natural gas transportation, where we have this 40% increase, it's part because we lost a dispute with Ejesur in Peru and had to write off $12 million of income that we were expecting from this company. Next. Here you see again the 15% increase in EBITDA, how all businesses contribute, notably natural gas transmission, which reflects Cálida for the most part, and the energy transmission, which is where we are focusing our growth strategy, and is already delivering positive results. 99% of the EBITDA this quarter came from the control entities because of the dividend issue that I mentioned before. And when we look at the EBITDA by business, by company, the TGI and Cálida plus Contugas contribution still are the most representative of all the businesses we have. And next. In terms of net income for the quarter, here perhaps is highlighting the financial expenses. Despite having 70% of the total debt in fixed income, we are seeing the indexation and the higher cost of financial expenses due to that indexation, and that is partially compensated by the current tax, which overall reduces by 109, so just growing 9%. When we look at the equity method, that 546. Here again, most of the companies are either growing or being relatively stable. In Enel Colombia, that reduction is for the most part associated with the generation business and lower energy prices, spot prices in Colombia, as this year has been a fairly rainy year. And the two businesses operated by ISA, CTM, and REP showing increases, reflecting that our Peruvian overall business position is healthy, not just because of our Calida situation, but also because of the businesses managed by ISA. Next. I'm sorry. Then Argo, here we show on the equity method the positive growth from Argo, which is where we are focusing most of our growth efforts and are in the process of closing the announced transaction. Next. So almost $4 billion in debt, 70% of that is fixed. And on the bottom right, we basically have minimum exposure to the high interest environment that we are seeing. The $176 million this year is something fairly manageable for us. And out of the 417 for 2023, the Calida 320, we have already signed a committed line and have and we're able to capture very low financial cost for the rollover of that maturity. And on the top right, our net debt to EBITDA is 2.9 times, which we consider healthy, and it will increase by about 0.3 times due to the acquisition of the Brazilian business. We do have a healthy cash position, $350 million at the group level, which again allow us to be quite disconnected, if you want, from the high interest rates that we are seeing both in pesos and in US dollars. We still have leverage capacity and are continue to looking to acquisitions, not on the size of the one that we announced in Brazil, but we believe that we have still some capacity to continue growing on the back of that increase in the EBITDA of the group. Next. CapEx was, as I said, was a positive. Organically, we grew our CapEx by 40%, and this is mainly, as I mentioned, Calida, in which we invested 79, and the transmission business in which we invested 78. This June 21 should read June 22. Apologize for that. And the total was 306. And we see a very healthy balance in our continuous CapEx profile. To highlight here is that these figures already include the Calida commitment. As I mentioned, Calida closed the 5-year tariff renewal, and that incorporates about $250 million of additional investments in Peru to continue expanding our network and reaching basically the coverage, the full coverage of the concession area in Lima. In terms of growth opportunities there, we are evaluating expanding on the proximity of our concession to leverage on our infrastructure and be aligned with the President Castillo and Peruvian government overall intent of massification of gas, in which we think we can play a role and develop a profitable business there. We are also looking initially from the financial perspective at the Colombian potential regas facility. The previous government decided to restart the project in order to develop some resilience in our gas sources, in our gas business, in our gas industry overall. and we are evaluating at the terms. We have yet to speak with the new government to see what they think about that additional gas connection point to the world markets. So the CapEx is and will continue being a combination of executing our organic projects plus looking for acquisition that we could execute on a profitable basis. Next. We have we conducted a conference call to discuss all the details of our Brazilian acquisition. So far we signed, but in the process of approval. And just to highlight the key elements of that acquisition is that these are assets that do not have demand risk, that the environment, that the regulatory environment has been fairly stable and allow us to, in the tariff reviews, on the periodic tariff reviews, we just need to incorporate the actual financial expenses of the company, and with that, the tariffs are updated. It's a BRL revenue stream, and these 5 concessions are in the northeast of Brazil, which is fully connected with our ESG strategy on the environmental part, because this is the area of Brazil in which more projects are going to be, more solar and wind projects are going to be developed, and more transmission lines are going to be needed to connect that new electricity with the consumption centers in Rio, in Sao Paulo, and in the state of Minas Gerais. And besides that, kind of organic expansion of the system as we move forward, the seller of these assets still has 4 more concessions that we think are going to be sold in the near future, and just being present and having a bigger scale in Brazil will allow us much more flexibility and some synergies to be competitive on a potential divestment of those 4 additional assets that are pointed in the bottom left. Next. And I think that the two additional elements of that is, in terms of synergies and leveraging on the platform we have, the whole due diligence and investment analysis process with Redeia, which was previously Red Eléctrica of Spain, was very constructive and allow us to have much more confidence on the valuation and the assessment of the potential value that we could extract from this company. So we are leveraging on that position that we established, and also it tested, if you will, our local teams, and we have a very solid local team with deep expertise and knowledge of the industry in Brazil, and again, that gives us confidence about our ability to capture value from this acquisition. Next. And then these are the $116 million investment in Elec Norte. So we added 138 kilometers. These are 2 lines. In the map, they are shown there on the Guajira department, which again helps us or allow us to leverage on the knowledge of this territory. All what we have learned to the Colectora project is going to be useful here, although these assets are already constructed and operating, so we did not incur in these projects. Next. So transmission is the key focus area for us, and here's a very nice picture of how we are adding geographical footprint and expanded this business. So if we count the operating and non-operating assets, the ISA ones, our total footprint will be north of 15,000 kilometers. In the last 12 months, big and small, we have added 2.9 thousand kilometers. And from years past efforts, dating back to 2015, 2016, we are constructing also about 3,000 kilometers. When all of that is operating, we will have 21,000 kilometers, which is a 37% increase from the current footprint that we have in the electricity transmission business. This is going to be a key part of our financial growth strategy, but also the development of the technical capabilities and the synergies that we have to run these assets gives us confidence to being able to operate in a profitable way and in high reliability, which is what the systems and the regulations require from us. And when you look at the different countries, of course, Brazil has a 21% increase, Colombia 7%, and then also Peru, we have growth. So it's a balanced growth, clearly with emphasis on Brazil. So that's what we had as the overall summary. We like to make it short to allow time for questions that may be more interesting of what we have to say. So I go back to you, Manuela.
Thank you very much, Jorge. I think your screen froze. If you can turn off the camera and turn it on again so we can see you. Thank you, everyone. We have some questions, so I'm gonna try to go through them. Remember, in the question and answer section in the top right part of your screen, you can ask your questions. Please state your name and the company you represent so we can easily identify you. So I think, Freddy, we need to clarify. As of the second quarter, we had a date of operation, of entry into operation for Colectora in 2024, but now that date has been updated for July to 2025. That's correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Perfect. So I'll start with you with this question that we have on Colectora to continue on topic, and then I can go through the rest of the questions. So this question is from Andres Duarte from Corfi Colombiana. Can you please explain the effects of delaying the startup deadline for Colectora, taking into account the auctions awarded in 2019 and 2021? He's meaning the effects on the generators, on the distributors, and on GEB as well.
Okay, I would say that we are aware of the problems we will have in the country with this delay, but you have to know that we are doing everything we can to do it as soon as possible. As you could see in our project, we already have the first section of the first part is going to have the license, the environmental license, probably this week, or probably maybe next week. And then we will start building the substations and the first part of the line immediately and put it in operation as soon as possible, probably in the first quarter of 2024. And we will have still 10% of the agreements with communities in the second part of the project. As soon as we got the 100%, we will also start the process of licensing. and we will do everything we can to build it as soon as we can. We will not save any resources and do it as soon. The date we have today approved by the minister in 2025 is the deadline, but we will have to work, and we know that we will put every effort to do it sooner than that.
And I will add to that, Manuel, I'm afraid that the fact that we have managed to reach agreements with more than 200 communities is a very strong demonstration of our ability to engage with the communities. We are living in a new environment here in Colombia with the new government, and we're confident that we can sit down with the new officials and demonstrate that we have been listening to communities and have managed to, in a very amicable way, and following the strict processes that are required under Colombian regulation, reach agreement with communities, having a much benefit for them and for the country, as this very critical piece of infrastructure needs to be online in order for Colombia to develop the transition of the energy transition that is a top goal of the federal government. So we are aligned with the government direction. We have done a lot of effort in demonstrating our communities, and because of the relevance of the solar and wind projects that are being developed in the Guajira, we think we can collaborate with the new government and move forward this project at the pace that Freddie mentioned, or perhaps even faster.
Thank you, Jorge. I have a question for Andres Baracaldo, our VP of Growth here in GEB. I lost it. 1 second. Yes. So, Andres, is GEB planning to acquire power generation businesses of projects in countries where Enel Green Power Colombia is not present?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We look at opportunities in all the countries in which we are currently present, and you know that we are present across the chain. And we look at opportunities on a case-by-case basis and look at the merits of each one. So we do look at all types of opportunities, but I will say that the focus, as Jorge mentioned before, the focus currently is probably not in that segment within the strategy that the group approved a couple of years ago. We are probably going to continue being more focused on transmission rather than generation opportunities. But as I said, we look at every opportunity and look at it on its own merit. So, but probably the focus is not going to be along that space.
Thank you, Andres.
I'll take it, and Manuel, I think I'll take the opportunity to answer number 4, because I think there was a question related to Brazil and the EBITDA margin.
Yeah, I was gonna give you that one. Do you have an EBITDA margin? Also from Andres Duarte. Andres, we thank you for all of your questions today. Do you have an EBITDA margin estimate for the 5 concessions won in Brazil?
Okay. These are normal businesses that have an EBITDA margin close to 90%. In the case of the assets we acquire, it's closer to 91, 92%, which is just a reflection of the type of businesses it is. And we do expect to have a margin along those lines and probably a little bit higher going forward.
Thank you, Andres. Jorge, what is the accounting effect, if any, of the expiration of the intercompany loan with TGI?
Thank you. So for all of the participants, we have an intercompany loan to TGI of $370 million, which is expiring in December of this year. The announced strategy is to finance that loan by TGI on a standalone basis, most likely in the Colombian local market, as the company revenues are likely moving to pesos in the near future. It is a minor effect and is associated with deferred tax. It is, as we made the loan when the exchange rate was much lower at the time of expiration, we will monetize, if you will, a tax gain on the repayment of that loan, and that generates some tax impact, but it's not material at the group level.
Thank you, Jorge. We have a question of someone that didn't give us the name. Are the total costs going to continue having bigger variations related to revenues annually and quarterly in the third quarter and fourth quarter?
Thank you. That's a very good question, because we struggle a lot how to explain to you in the best possible way those high variations. And I'll say, as a key message, our cost base is under control. We're being very disciplined across businesses and are being able to control costs. There are a lot of one-offs and a lot of macro and network expanding expenses that are reflected in the numbers you are seeing. One of the higher ones is the impact in Cálida. We have more connections, and we're selling more gas, and both have a nominal effect on the cost increases. As we move forward and we try to estimate the end of the year, in Cálida, for example, the results are going to be increased in our EBITDA. In fact, we just increased our estimate to close the year in about $205 to $210 million of EBITDA in Cálida. So we will continue trying to explain you in the best possible way. There are many moving parts, and there are some one-offs that are reflected in those. I invite to the person who made the question to come back to us if there is any particular explanation that you want. But we have a very disciplined approach and austerity programs that allow me to say that we do not have a cost inflation as a material and continue cost inflation in our businesses.
Thank you, Jorge. We have two similar questions regarding the gas situation in Colombia. So I will ask both of them so you can answer them, Jorge. One is from Juan Jose Muñoz from BTG Pactual, who asked, could you update us on the current regulatory situation of the gas transportation sector in Colombia? And have you received any news about the regulation that will adjust Resolution 175? And the other one, is there any update with regards to the new gas regulation scheme in Colombia? That one is from Fernán González, also from BTG.
Okay, Fernán Juan Jose, we have continued engagement with the CREG to try to delay the Resolution 102, which was the one that actually modified the 175, as we think that these are not the best this is not the best timing to try to implement a hedging strategy that TGI has decided if that resolution will start its application as is written now in September 1st. We are engaged with the new government, the Ministry of Mines, the Ministry of Treasury, to explain to them that what we consider is bad timing to actually execute a hedging policy, because financial markets are very volatile. The interest rates are too high, and do a hedging for 6 years in the middle of this volatility as a country, and it is not perhaps the best approach. And delaying that is our target. If not, we will implement the hedging strategy. We have advanced conversations with key banks and have a lot of the administrative work needed to do hedging in place. The rest, or a key impact of the resolution 175 and 102 is the how much is being recognized and paid to the company for the assets that will be 20 years old in the coming years. That only will have impact on TGI starting in 2026. So we expect to continue explaining and demonstrating to the regulator and to the government that perhaps the resolution 175 went too far and assigned too little value, and there is very little precedent globally actually to have this type of regulation in place.
Thank you, Jorge. That's all the questions we have right now. Let's give us a second to see if anyone wants to post an additional question. I will also ask everyone to give us your feedback on. Yep.
Manuela, just looking here at some of the questions, the EBITDA margin estimate for the 5 concessions in Brazil.
That one was answered by Andres. I think I didn't miss anything else. So I ask everyone if you can provide feedback on this new, having 2 calls, one in English and Spanish. That will help us a lot to see if it's better and if it's more understandable without the translator. We do have new questions here, so let me see. Juan Diego Prieto from BNP Paribas asks us, considering potential gas shortage and regulation changes, do you expect TGI to continue contributing the same to EBITDA and revenues in coming years? If so, which strategies will be implemented? Jorge, we cannot hear you. Maybe Andres can give us his impression.
Is Jorge going to get that one or?
No, we cannot hear Jorge, so maybe if you can help us, or I can answer as well.
No, I think from our side, and you correct me if I'm mistaken, but we expect a relative stable contribution from TGI. I mean, we know that there are some questions regarding where in the long term gas is going to come, but we think that the opportunity that Colombia has is that there are certain potential sources for that gas. We are, I mean, as you know, we are in the midstream, so we are not directly involved in some of those discussions regarding the upstream. But what we think is good about Colombia is we have different sources. So we have the offshore that we all are aware of. There has been some discussion about potentially importing through an LNG plant or from Venezuela. And there's, of course, all the onshore exploration that has been going on. And what we hear from the new government is that the current exploration contracts are going to be kept. And therefore, that gas should come to market at some point in time. So we are not particularly worried about that for the short and medium term. So we will expect TGI to contribute a similar share to what it has been contributing to the group in the past. Obviously, we have to keep an eye on regulation developments and tariff reviews, but for the time being, that's our expectation.
Thank you, Andres. I will add that Colombia has about 8 years of proven reserves at the moment for gas. So that to complement your clear answer. Thank you, Andres. And we have a question from Fernan Gonzalez, sorry, Fernan, from BTG Pactual. What are your first impressions of the new Energy and Mines Minister? Jorge, are you back? Jorge? Okay, Fernanda, I will say that question. We have to wait and see a little bit. We hope for the best in the regulation system in Colombia, and we hope for the best for the new minister. But I think we have to wait a little bit more and see how it develops in Colombia, especially understanding that the gas is absolutely important and absolutely mandatory as a fuel for the transition in Colombia, and we are expecting there to see what happens. I don't think we have Jorge back, so that's it for questions. Thank you very much, everyone. At 9:15, sorry, we have another one from Fernan Gonzalez. Fernan is asking about the taxes. Do you foresee any impact from the tax reform, and in particular from carbon taxes? Jorge, are you back? I can read the question again to you. From Fernan Gonzalez, do you foresee any impact from the tax reform, and in particular from carbon taxes?
Manuela, what also just because obviously Jorge is having problems with the connection, I would love to answer that one, but I don't know the precise answer to that, and so I wouldn't want to make up a number here or an impact. But I'll suggest is that why don't we reply to them with an email or with some other form of communication to those questions, because I think Jorge is having trouble with his connection.
Yes, Andres, I will contact Fernan personally later and answer that question. We are still reviewing the tax reform. The tax reform is still the first draft, so we might see a lot of changes on the way, as it usually happens, but we continue to monitor the changes there, and I will contact Fernan directly to answer that question. So thank you, everyone. We will have the version of this call at 9:15 in Colombian time in Spanish. We will upload this recording into our webpage, and we hope you contact us for any question that was left unanswered or that you may have. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andres. Thank you, Freddy. Thank you, Jorge, if you can hear us. And let's hope to see everyone soon. Bye.
Good day for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.